everyone's eyes up here because I want to explain a couple of things. I sent out information about this via an email last night, but I want y'all to notice this really quickly up here. Y'all don't have this screen, but eyes up here for now. No calculators, just laptops. Okay. So one of the things that I was originally planning is, if you look under solving equations, linear, literal, and quadratic, there's actually 3 different sets of problems. There's the first set that has 4 workspaces that you have to do. That's the linear and literal solving equations. But then after that, there's 2 workspaces called solving, I think solving equations with readiness or something. And then after that comes the quadratics. Well, the way that MATHia works is goofy, and you can only move through one thing at a time. And so what I don't want you to have to do this. If you are struggling with solving equations at all, then you should do this right here. And I'm about to actually unlock that. You should have seen that when you logged in. Okay. So I'm unlocking this. And so what I need, and I sent an email about this, check your emails if you forget this weekend, but right here, you only have to do the first 4 workspaces out of this section. That's the solving linear equations, it's solving literal equations, there's like a couple other things in there. So you only do the first 4 out of here, and then you do this one with quadratic equations. Just one.
So I'm done. It's not my done. I'm done.
I'll come and look at it in a second. But there's 4, not 4 problems, 4 workspaces. And so like you have to solve quite a few equations and things like that. Okay? When you finish the first 4 workspaces, you'll move to the quadratics. If you are struggling here, that's why I have this one. Notice how it says non-essential. You don't have to do this for your homework grade. You have to do the first 4 from here and this one, and when you complete those 5 workspaces, you'll have 100. The way that MATHia works is it watches as you need hints and as you need ask for help in solving problems, and so it will force you to keep working until you have mastered the content, which means you will have a better understanding. And that may get frustrating, but it's for your good. All right? If you get to a point where you're struggling and you're just about to throw your hands up, email me and talk with me and we'll figure things out. We should be able to finish this by Sunday. I had one student who finished all of this yesterday in 3rd block and was already on solving quadratic equations. They only had about 40 minutes to work. And so it's doable. There was one other thing I wanted to do. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you. When you get to this part, because this was causing some people trouble. And so this is what I was talking about. It's hard to see because it's dark, but within this section I had these 4 subsections and then these 2. You don't need to do this readiness one. Once you finish these 4, it says reasoning about solving equations, solving linear equations in a variety of forms, extending equations to literal, and then solving literal. You have to do those 4, and then you have to do the quadratic. So those 4 workspaces. But I want you to see this really quickly because I think there was some confusion about this workspace. So you may not be here yet, you may not have it unlocked, but I do want you to pay attention. Notice how in this section, you see how that problem setup is very similar to this problem setup? Okay, the reason why is we're trying to teach you what's called literal equations, where the equation is all or almost all variables. But the way this works is identical to how you'd work this. Over here we're solving for that x, and over here we're also solving for x. Notice how that's in the same spot. And so what you want to do is do a step here, and then do that same step over here to help you build your understanding. So, for example, what could I do to start solving for x here? Distribute is one option. Does anyone know another option? So I could distribute, right? I would get 3x plus 9 equals 7. That's not what I would necessarily recommend. It can work. Notice what's happening between the 3 and those parentheses. Multiplication. So you could divide, or remember there's the multiplicative inverse, and that's what I want you to start thinking about. What would be the multiplicative inverse of 3 divided by 1? Say that one more time. And remember, y'all kept saying divide, right? So 1 divided by 3. So when I look here, I will look for the option multiply both sides. Notice how they are, and I will say this, you can do that, or you can distribute, or you can do whatever. There's actually multiple ways that the calculator or the computer will take this. And notice how it automatically creates multiplication on both sides of the equation, because we have to use properties of equality. A lot of us, again, we're talking about properties of equality as they create equivalent equations. Is that true? Heck yeah. But we also need to remember the way that happens is whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. So you want to update your graphic organizer. And so I'm good to go there, right? So what am I going to do on the right-hand side? What's the same thing, though? Remember, we ended up not dividing, we ended up multiplying. What would I multiply both sides by? Right. The reciprocal, 1 divided by W. Okay? So what would be my last step over here? Thank you, Ishmael, for being involved in that conversation. Come on, I need more of us. So I'm going to subtract from both sides. 3. There you go. So what am I going to do on the literal equation with just those variables? Subtract that C. We all good with that? Now, you may think, hey, I'm done, so you go to the top right-hand corner and test it and say, hey, I'm done. Notice there's more work to be done in this problem. And so, I think there's an option here. Oh yeah, combine like terms. Now I think I'm done. You just have to do the 7/3 minus 3, and it'll do that for you. You don't have to stress about doing the fractions and things like that. The TI Inspires will do fractions for you, and now notice again another problem that has similar setup. Okay? We need help and we need practice with solving equations. That's why I've set this up. Last detail that I want to point out. Let me get out of here. Because some of you may get frustrated with solving quadratic equations over the weekend. And so again, remember, I'm filming this right now so that you can go back and look at this. Remember, first off, there's hints, right? There's solve the problem, there's step by step. There's a lot of help on MATHia, but I'm also going to upload these videos. And you don't have to skip and go to the problem like I just did, but this should look somewhat familiar. What would I do to get started in solving this equation? Or one thing I can do. Subtract 85? Because if I subtract 85, what's that going to create? A 0, right? We want that additive identity in there. So subtract from both sides. 85. Alright. Now, I will point out, you see how it didn't simplify on the left-hand side? Should it have simplified on the left-hand side? There are options for that. Just combine like terms. It'll do that work for you. What we want to see is that you understand what you're supposed to do. Right? Anthony, what would I do next? By?
Negative 10.
Is there another way to say that besides divide by negative 10?
Oh no.
So about this on here.
There is another way other than dividing.
Square root.
What could I multiply by?
Negative 6.
Negative 10.
Oh.
If I put a negative 10 here, is that going to create a 0?
Yeah.
Or not a 0, a 1?
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
Oh.
Negative 1, not over 10. Remember how you said divide, right? What is the relationship between this and this? They're called
Reciprocal.
reciprocals or multiplicative
Inverse.
inverse. If you are not recognizing this, you need to go back to numbers 1 and 2 from understanding concepts of linear functions. That was building the foundation of what we're doing. This is the practice. I want you to use that reciprocal because it will help you much more long term than anything else. So negative 66 divided by negative 10. And what would some of you think to do here? Take a, huh? What would you do to solve for x at this point? Square root. I think if I hit, so that's an option. Take a square root of both sides. Notice it gave me an x and not quite. I need to rewrite my fraction. So make sure, like, yes, I could take a square root, but sometimes MATHia wants you to do a specific thing. So I rewrote the fraction. That was an option down here. Now I can take a square root. Now, one thing to pay attention to is the calculator or MATHia doesn't want you to stay like this. There's an option here where it says evaluate radicals. Okay? So you will want to evaluate the radicals. That was a goofy thing, but again, it'll give you hints if you need it to. So notice I'm going to highlight that radical, and it's just going to automatically give me a decimal. And I would imagine it wants me to rewrite that fraction. Yeah. So it'll do the work for you, right? I said evaluate the radical, and it automatically took the square root of that x squared. Now that I've gotten down to this single decimal, I'm done. Now, please hear me very clearly on this. I would never write this as a decimal. I would have stopped right here. That is a unique element of what MATHia wants you to do. This is perfectly acceptable for me. So on assessments, you can stop there. We good? Yeah? Kiwan, do you know why we got a plus or minus here? Like, they didn't ask us if we wanted it. They just automatically gave us a plus and minus. Do you know why? So should we ask a question about that? Guys, when you see something, and I wasn't trying to call Kiwan out there, when you see something where you're like, I don't know why that just happened, you need to immediately ask a question about that. Jenny, can you explain to us why we got a plus or minus here? So remember, we had 33 divided by 5 was equal to x squared. And so we told MATHia to take a square root. And so it said plus or minus the square root of 33 divided by 5 equals x. When does it become that positive or negative? Whenever you take a square root, we need to remember that a positive or negative would work there. Because if you square a negative number, it automatically becomes positive. Right? So we want to keep that in mind. We all good on that? Need to get a different one? Okay. Alright, y'all got 30 minutes, 27 minutes from right now to do as much as possible in the computers. Ms. Courtney will be supporting you significantly, which is why, what should we have out on our desk? Name cards. Remember, Ms. Courtney unfortunately has been pulled out of the classroom, I think 3 of the 5 days that she's supposed to be in here. So she is still learning names. Make sure you have those name cards out. She'll be a huge asset. If you get stuck, ask questions. If she can't be there right away, who else can you ask questions from? Your group. Remember, I always want active collaboration. And if that still doesn't help, the MATHia program gives you hints as well. Let's get to work. Thank y'all for getting your name cards out. There's some paper there.
Alright, Mr. Ken, I got a question.
Ms. Courtney, right there.
Recording. I already did this. Is this right? Like, if I'm done. So I can do this.
Oh, wait. Boy, you saw another one there? How you doing
This
it?
is 6 out of 7. I thought we were supposed to do 4.
Oh man, turning 18?
No, what you talking about?
How many you got?
No, you're supposed to finish the whole thing. I think these are the 4. Right?
Yeah, but you said
He said don't worry about that one.
Thank you. I will say this, I forgot to remind you of this yesterday, but we need these video release forms for EdTPA ASAP. I will let you turn in Monday since I forgot to remind you. But it is due Monday. If it comes in after Monday, 10% off every day it's late. If you have any other late homework to turn in, get it out. If you need another copy of the EdTPA release form, let us know. Huh? So 9.9, first off, did you talk to your group at all? Yes, none of them knew what to do? Did you hit hints? Yeah. Well, so remember, what's understood to be in front of that, right? The coefficient of that W is 9.9. Nothing's written there, so it's understood to be 1 W. And so what's 9.9 minus 1 is 8.9. You even have that right here.
That's what I did.
Then you might have mistyped it. See, you got it written right there. You have to put the whole thing there. You get, but I'm glad you realize it now, but that's what was missing.
We're to 3, not going to 20.
So when you, okay, when it says combine like terms, it just wants you to add them together. So like,
Oh.
so that's an 8.2Z and then that's a 1.
Or 8.3.
Not 8.3, it'd be, because this would be the same as like 1.0, so you have to add a whole 1 to that 8.2. And then it might want you to type the Z with it in that box. Did you, like, how, so did you put, did it
I
already
just
give
pressed
you
the
the
scroll wheel, and it's on.
Keep on doing it.
There's 5 total workspaces. So you're on the 3rd one right now. There's one more after this one in this section, and then there's the quadratics one. But quadratics only has one section.
I was trying to think of like if it just wanted like the 9.2 not the Z.
One thing I will suggest, y'all, before you ask help from actually us, since you won't have us or your friends at home, I would try using the hints to help you out. If that still doesn't help, talk to those in your group and ask us. But start with the hints from the computer. Did you finish all that work? No. Then yes. So yeah. I got you. Yeah, so this isn't essential. So you actually ended up already doing this and you
Put
did that.
plus.
So
Okay.
what I would do for now,
So
just really make sure that you get a little extra practice with it.
Because that's
So the quadratics may be the hardest part, or maybe some literal equations.
Okay.
So while,
Yeah.
yeah, or you can help Alex.
So the bucket sort thing was kind of
But try to work
confusing.
on that, and if she's doing
From this
fine,
original
then let her
equation,
keep
it
working
combined
if
the
she has a
two Z
question.
terms
feed her
together,
with
so that's how you got that. And then
But just get some extra practice
Ball
in.
against stick.
So now you're gonna keep solving for Z. You know where to go from here? Okay. The bucket thing
Because I
is.
have to get shut if you were to do, but that's
I assume it's supposed to say excused on here?
yeah. I don't know, she's writing all kinds of things.
Yes, sir.
So you said, if I got something like this, I'm supposed to divide it by 3 divided by 1.
Well, multiply it by 3 divided by 1. See right here, it says use the multiplication property of equality. Multiply both sides of the equation by 3. Right? I will say this, to do this problem, it's going to be hard to do it without writing stuff down. So you may want to get a piece of paper and a pencil, or you could get a marker and write on your desk. But just to get you started. Yeah. So what it's saying is, it's telling you what to do in the problem. Definitely did not get myself enough room. Just know that this is supposed to be the whole equation. Da, da, da. So it's saying multiply by 3, right? And you said 3 divided by 1, right, which is the reciprocal. And then so notice I would have to multiply the entire right-hand side by 3. The whole reason that we do this here, so what is 3 divided by 3?
This one.
Oh, yeah, right.
So 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 times this thing is just going to be this thing, because that's the multiplicative identity. Equals. Now what you want to be careful of, sorry about that, is look right here and notice, see how I said multiply the entire right-hand side by 3? See how they did 3 times negative 9, is that negative 27? They didn't show it, but that's how they got that. Right, so this is the right-hand side. Negative 9 times negative 3 plus x. Nope, negative 3 plus x. And then there's this plus 2 here. Right? See how 3 times negative 9 is negative 27? That's how they got this negative 27. Right? Notice how it has a plus 6? Because that 3 also has to get distributed to that 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. So they already did that part for you. You just have to put the left-hand side. Right? Because those 3's cancel, and so on the left-hand side you're just left with that. Right? And the whole thing is, notice they solved this same exact equation one way over here, and they're trying to show you there's another way to do it on the right-hand side. So follow the directions and use your hints. Okay? So, are you sure you have the right username and password?
I already did that.
Okay.
This one just I just got it.
When you came Tuesday,
It's too many variables.
when you came Tuesday, did I tell you what pocket number to put your cell phone in? Well, good. Just want to make sure. Yeah, we're missing a line.
So this is what he was saying, that, like, when you're solving
It's on your
an equation on this
iPad.
side and getting it on this side, and all
So
letters,
do this for
when it's all letters, you can take the same steps.
Here are the directions to get into MATHia.
Is it to you like
I
this,
would put
or
her
is it
space
side
for you
by
to put your
side so you
username and
can see
password.
that?
Get talk to the front office and make sure you have the right username. Okay?
So for this, we're trying to get z by itself. So right, what's going on right now with the z? Okay, so what's the inverse of that? Okay. Okay, so the other thing is, if you divided z by d, you can also have multiplied by 1. Like if you dividing by d, you could have multiplied by what? By what? Not d, but not the, what's the same as your division? How could you have used multiplication to do the same thing? Because you had, on this side, you multiplied as first, right? What was the original? Was that square?
Oh, yeah. So there is a way to do it like that. What's the additive inverse?
Click on divide and see what it does. Okay, so then to get z by itself, we're going to divide by. Right now it's being multiplied, so. So type in d, type it in.
That's one reason why I didn't know
I know, but
that additive
I'm saying
inverse
on
was
this
split
side you
inverse as well.
multiplied
Because
first.
remember, when you
And it wants you
add,
to do the same
oh,
steps, so
same
you're
thing.
supposed
That
to
would
do
still
it,
create zero.
like if you do a step on this side, do it on this side. But the multiplication on this side would have been a little bit different for this problem. Okay, so now that it says Z, but look, you solve for Z, you're done, because it says Z equals all the other stuff, you got Z by itself.
Irritated.
Both is
Yep.
minus 11 squared. Do the triple pocket. Do 4. Oh,
Thank
no.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so now I can do this one,
No, that's 40.
work both sides, and like watch how.
Hey Gerald, did you forget
Okay,
to
solve for
put
F
your phone
over
up?
here, so.
Did you forget to put your phone up?
Because you see how the F is in the same place on both equations? You're solving the same way, it's just deciding how many numbers.
Oh,
Hey
nice.
Kyle, did you forget to do something when you first walked into class?
Oh, put my phone up.
Thanks, sir. Gotta remember to do that.
62. 40. 62. I give up.
No, we can't be giving up. Just use
You're
your
fine,
hands.
look, on these, it doesn't, for these, what you're doing. Okay,
What's the F? What you do right here? What you do right here?
is, you're using the
What would you do right
properties of equality. You're not solving for anything on these, right? Okay.
I'm
So,
just writing down those examples and stuff so that I.
4x minus 44 squared. Plus
similar on both sides.
92.
Okay, so if X equals X,
Yeah,
then
74.
take that out, give it the same on both sides, and then I would leave you with what being equal.
Minus 18.
And
18
then
equals
that's
Four
justified by
squared
which
minus
property?
4x. Now what you do?
Well, so the X, okay, so you said the X was the same on both sides, what's the X doing?
That's 44.
That makes sense? Okay, so like in the second one, what's similar on
Well,
both
then
sides?
you're going to get 44 squared.
Yes, division of one. Okay, so then when
One
you
nine.
put the drop down, what
One
remains
nine.
equal?
3, 6.
12.
4 plus 1, 9, 3, 6 plus 1, 9, 18.
That makes sense?
One,
So you should be able to finish these out.
1, 9, 5, okay. Nine, 77.
You're not doing that, you're doing this.
Oh.
25 I would. Subtract.
That's what mine do.
Yeah, straight. Oh, dang, you still can't.
I was already doing that.
So like, saying it's not right.
1/2.
1/2.
1/2x.
How is it gonna be 1/2?
I mean 1/2.
It's 1/1.
I don't think we can do 1/1. Can you do 1/1? Can you do 1/1?
It's simplified.
You can't do 1/1. Go ahead.
It's not getting it. This not.
Very good. But it will show you how you do it.
When you use your hands, you move forward.
Do it?
Yeah.
Why do you keep making me use my hips and I'm using it?
Use which one? Use which question you said?
It won't give
How
you
you know?
as much as it does to figure it out.
No, Anthony. You don't care that I'm over. Why is it not working?
You can't put the 0 in the fraction.
I don't know.
It's 2 over 1 x.
See, yeah, so we have to keep that.
You can't even put that over here. It's all just the two. It's gotta be right.
No, because I thought you just said
When it's only negative. It's only negative two.
so negative 2. I didn't see that negative. What you mean?
You don't know what you're doing.
There she go.
You got me. I tried. You gotta buy something.
You didn't even know sneezing that big. We should go to the teacher.
So you split these. Okay, so on this side, it's 3/8 minus 5/8. And then I subtract and I got, you put in a calculator. I do it both ways.
Depends on how long it takes you to match the content. If you see at the top the little blue circles, and once you fill all of that, it will let you move on.